Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, great. So welcome back, everyone. My name is Serena, and I'm back to you with our Erasmus Alumni talk this evening with Rocco. So, hello, Rocco, officially, and thank you for joining us today. Before giving you the word, I would briefly introduce you. So actually, Rocco is a really important figure for our foundation because he's actually one of the founders and board member of the garagErasmus Foundation. He's a diplomat and lawyer specialized in European and international law and affairs, and he's actually and currently working for the Foreign Ministry of
the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, thank you. In Italy, but he's appointed in Brussels. Why am I telling you this? Because he has a really international and important career. So he has been working in different countries, especially in Europe. So from Spain to Switzerland to Turkey, a really a huge variety of experiences. And you told me that it all started with your Erasmus in Spain, in Bilbao. So would you like to tell us more about how Erasmus influenced your career and about your career actually?
Well, thank you, Serena, and a great greetings and a great you to all the attenders of the garagErasmus, the students, right, of the garagErasmus Academy. I know that you are a lot, you are many people, and that everything is going well. So I'm really happy as a founder of garagErasmus and a member of the board to be here and give you an account of my career and the reason why finally I went on board of this adventure with Francesco, with Nicola, and with all the others, Fabrizio, Serena, and Carlo, to push on this experience, garagErasmus project. I'm here because the Erasmus had a very, very great influence of my career, and there is a specific connection between anything I did in Bilbao many years ago, more than 20 years ago, in 96, 97, and what then I did later in many passages of my career, but also today, still very actual. I mean, for sure, to go to Bilbao for me meant to go outside my comfort zone. I was a student in Pisa where I met Francesco. Then first I met Francesco there, and Francesco went to Bilbao the year before that I went, 95, 96. Then I went to study there for 1 year. Trade. I was a law student, so it was. I think, if I remember well, it was criminal law, commercial law, and then sociology or of criminal law, so criminology, and then intellectual property. And it was my, let's say that I was a guy that was not so much interested in international relations, international law. And Bilbao was a great watershed, turning point of my life, because first I started socializing, having a network, and it was a very international university, the Deusto University, which is more or less like in Italy, the Bocconi University. So many people there, coming from not only from Europe, but also from South America and Asia, and still many of them are friends of mine. But especially Bilbao, with this ambition to independence, was also very, very, very keen on European law and community law. And then every Wednesday, I remember there was a seminar about European affairs, and that was the first time that I heard about the Amsterdam Treaty. That was around 1997. It was to be concluded, and then I heard a lot about directives and regulations, and then this idea of the European Union integration. That was the first time that I really went deep into these issues. And many years after, now I'm working at the permanent representation of Italy to the European Union, and I just come from the Council, where we discussed a lot of issues concerning civilian missions, military missions, and the EU as a geopolitical subject in the world. So there was a specific connection, let's say, between my interest in international careers, international law, European Union law, which started exactly, was triggered by the main interest that I developed there. Obviously, I also learned a language, which was Spanish. I went there by chance, let's say, but I already knew English. But let's say that today still, I mean, the fact that I learned there that language was very useful for me, because I obviously today can still apply for many, many places in the world where Spanish is the main language, from South America, Central America. And you know also that Spanish is growing in use in North America, in marketing, in economics, and it's a very important language. I mean, Erasmus meant for me, Erasmus is now meant for me very much from a personal angle and from a professional angle. Many friends of that time are still my friends. A great friend of my Italian then married one of my friends in my girlfriends there, Adelaida, Andrea and Adelaida. They still live in Rome now in Garbatella. And a very big group of friends from Spain, from Alvaro Reynolds, from Ireland, from London, from France, still are well connected. And in some cases, they are also very useful in order to solve problems and to get to certain points to solve affairs, which also are important from a working, a professional point of view. It was the first time that I really socialized in an international setting, and I had the chance to start with a network. Networking is very important today. Socializing, having the capacity to solve problems, move from a place to another, having no connection with the place before, and so starting from scratch, from the bottom to organize and set all your life, from renting a house or starting with your medical insurance, and then having the capacity also to develop social relations, and then to get to the most important, dealing with the most important necessity that you have in the daily life. Today, I am able to not to have any fear. I mean, to move from one place, from one state to another, from one in a few weeks, in a few months, or even in a few days in some cases for working reasons. And this is something that I really owe to my experience in Bilbao. There are many other important issues that we could cope with, but finally, I would say the very important thing is that when you go abroad, and so this is my suggestion: try. Basically, the first time that you do is not only to know another culture, which is also very important because it brings you curiosity and about other cultures and about what all the issues that surround that culture, but also you know better yourself. I mean, there was one of my professors in my university, before becoming a diplomat and a lawyer, I was also a law researcher in the university, Catholic University of Milan. Always said that the first thing that you do when you go out is basically not to know the others by yourself, because by getting the differences, then you know who you are. By living in a place which is different from the place you have ever lived, then you obviously understand which are your capacities, which are your strengths, which are your weaknesses, and what are the limits and the strengths of your culture. And I still remember the first time that I went in Bilbao, and I was at the television. I was watching the television, and I saw the weather forecasts from the point of view, from the angle of Spain, not of Italy. And that this is very important to know, to change perspective, to have another angle from whom to look at your life. So I hope that I've somehow answered to your question, Serena. Erasmus has been really a turning point for my life, professional and personal.
Okay, so we saw that Erasmus is really really important on shaping our lives and our careers, and not only Erasmus, exchanges in general, so study and working exchanges. So what recommendations do you have for our students or young graduates here to try different experiences, to, I don't know, go out of their comfort zone? What is your opinion?
Well, I just said, I mean, it's personally, I think that the way you have to look at the Erasmus is to have the Erasmus as a kind of bench of where you test yourself, and first start as a socializing experience in Europe. My suggestion is that the way you behave in your life pass through a lot of experiences. In my case, until my year of Erasmus, where I was studying in Pisa, it was basically a kind of inter-Italian Erasmus. I went from Lecce to Pisa. It was very far in that years, because there was no real good connections, railway connections. But then, I mean, I was not interested in international relations, in international affairs, in European affairs. To go to Bilbao was the occasion to develop an entirely new world. Then Erasmus has to be seen as a bench where you test yourself, and as my professor, which I mentioned before, said, to know better yourself. Then it is a socializing experience, and you know many people. These people comes into your network, and this is what garagErasmus as a project wants to do: to create a community, to create a network, but also to provide, in progress of time, a kind of instruments, network instruments, to maintain and to preserve your relations all lifelong with your Erasmus month. In that occasion, when you go in your Bilbao, you will meet many people. You will meet many people, and people who are studying there, who are getting experiences, who are getting ideas, creativity, who are exactly experimenting what you are experimenting, and they will come back to their countries with the will to work abroad, or also the will to stay there, but import their ideas and apply them, eventually establishing a firm or becoming a professional and giving consultancies. This is very important. Networking is very important, as you know, is part of entire programs of training in all over the world, in American university, Asian university. This is the start of an important European international network that you can have in your mobility experience. This relation has to be served, has to be taken safe for all your life, and can be interesting and important. In another moment of my life, I had something similar to Erasmus. Erasmus is not the only program that provides for the national mobility. In another occasion of my life, in many other occasions, but there was one occasion which was a very strange Erasmus in my same city, but it was an Erasmus for many other people. I was in Lecce, in the ISUFI. ISUFI is an University Institute for Interdisciplinary Studies, where I had my PhD and also my master in Euro-Mediterranean policies. And at that time, it was around the end of the 90s, the beginning of the new millennium. there were many, let's say, within brackets, Erasmus students coming from all over the community of the Mediterranean area, the Mediterranean Sea. Many people from North Africa, many people from Greece, many people from Turkey, Spain, Morocco, and it was Albania or the Balkans, and I met many people which had the same interest and professional interest, but also the same approach to life. After many years now, one of them is an important diplomat in Montenegro, and since Montenegro became independent now, he is a director general, very important for bilateral relation, but he has already been the representative of Montenegro to the European Union and ambassador in Poland. Another is the wife of the former Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Albania, Bashar, and many others. They have important positions all over the Mediterranean Sea in important state firms or in non-governmental organizations, and they all are persons with which I have something in common. We share a part of our life in a condition very similar to Erasmus, so a mobility experience for them, but also a kind of mobility experience for me. And also with them, I can tell you that the networking experience means that in any moment I have to find a partner for an interregional project, or I have to find a way to get to a point and solve a problem for an Italian national, or I have to go and understand what is happening in the country because of my job. So understand what is happening around the Libyan area or in Egypt or in Morocco. Then I have one voice which I trust and which can help me both to understand and operational issues. So these networks that you start through mobility and international mobility experience are networks that bring you an added value, both in terms of personal life, because they enrich your life, but also in terms of professional life, because they are part of the results of the deliverables that you can give in any professional situation. What I suggest? I suggest to, well, I had my Erasmus experience, and it was nearly by chance. My father was a great traveler, and he said, "Why don't you go?" One day, I had the chance to apply for. Well, let's say that the deadline was expired. The deadline for the Erasmus in that year that I went in '96 was expired, and there were some scholarships, some free mover scholarship. My father said, well, why now you finish your exams, why don't you see for, and I went around and I found these scholarships, and then I had to go. I mean, there were Barcelona and Bilbao, and I just passed before then the office which was competent for Barcelona. I just passed before the palace where there was the office competent for Bilbao, and then I jumped in, and the grant was there, and one of the ambassadors of garagErasmus was the former professor of Italian literature at the university, Catherine Isaacs, was there, and she was brilliant. She gave me the scholarship in 2 seconds, and then I went to Bilbao. It was by chance. Perhaps today I would say that you students, you should use all the chances that Erasmus gives to you in a more, proactive way. Today is not only, I mean, the grants. You go there and you study 10 months, you study 6 months or 3 months, but you have an entire program of Erasmus Plus, which allows you to go, I mean, to draft a thesis, or to make a research, or to go to have an Erasmus in an administration or in a firm, or eventually also many other type and chances, such as, I mean, to study, to have a master outside Europe, or eventually the reverse for extra European Union students to come to Europe. I mean, I think that all this full panoply of instruments, so this full array of instruments that the Erasmus program gives you, which a champion is probably Carlo Bitetto, who made like 10 Erasmus in his life, can be used within a project of life, right? Can be eventually used as I did. I mean, just going around and exploring and then trying to mold, to select, you know, to define a route, a kind of professional and personal route. But then it could also be used with more precision and I mean, within the idea that, for example, if you are interested in social science, to go and live in countries where the welfare systems is very well developed, like in Scandinavia, or if you are interested in politics, for instance, and in a certain type of politics, to go to Bilbao was an important experience in the year in terms of independentism, and today, obviously, Catalonia is a place to go and understand what happens with the national state and the relation between the national state and the local communities. And there are important centers, you know, that the theory of comparative advantage also serves its function for universities and for places where culture, centers where specialization are more important or not. So, I mean, to go to Brussels is to have the chance to see the European institution, but to go to Berlin is the chance to see how, for example, the security studies, for instance, there is an important college for the common foreign and security policy and sustainable issues, the Center for Sustainable Development. I mean, it is important to think to understand what you have around, and then try to write down a map and go to the places where you have a particular interest, and then insist and eventually come back and study, have an experience in firms, have an experience in institutions, and this is something which can give you really an added value. Thank you, Serena.
Okay, great. That's a really extensive answer. So to summarize, I know it has been said the previous day. So we encourage you to take an Erasmus experience or any kind of study or work experience abroad to try to take the first step into the unknown. And especially Rocco mentioned the network is really important, the place where you go. So don't go randomly, go somewhere where you think you can evolve, where you think you maybe can stay longer. So from study to work later on, somewhere where you can speak a language that you are learning, that you can practice. So these are all really important factors, and you should kind of plan a bit your moves. And talking about planning your moves strategically or not, because as we saw, Rocco told us that his first Erasmus was actually an opportunity he took, but also a bit by chance. So we'd like to talk about a bit about your career. Before that, guys, I remind you that you have a space to ask your questions. So please ask your questions to our guests this evening. Maybe this is a good opportunity because now we will talk about your career. So as a lawyer, maybe there is someone, I don't know if there is someone studying law here or diplomacy or interested in this field, but actually we would like to know how did you end up working for the ministry now? So which path did you have? I don't know, how did you work before to go there? In a more practical way, so maybe to give a bit a help to our students and graduates here.
Well, I mean, I have a very atypical career, which probably is connected with this idea of exploring and new adventures and changing. I always said since I was a child that I would have changed a lot during my life, and then I did. Many people said well, it is very difficult, and in fact, it is a bit of difficult, especially in Italy, where there are many guilds, let's say, many professional groups, and it is not easy to jump from a professional group to the other. I worked first as a lawyer in a small city. I made my practice, legal practice, and my first let's say my first passage to international, well, my thesis, my final thesis as at the end of my university was on international law, and obviously this choice was consequent to my Erasmus. And my experience as a lawyer in a small city in the south of Italy, in Lecce, in Puglia, Salento, was interesting, but it was totally alien and far from being international. Let's say that I have kind of a recognition of a proceeding in Germany concerning a wedding or a divorce. I don't remember exactly, but this was interesting because it was a kind of hook into international through studying the Italian law on private international law. So the reform of private international law and the recognition of judgment, which was 3 years later, from 2005 to 2008, and a law which was specially postponed in order to solve many important problems left open on the table. But basically, Lecce didn't give me so many chances. This is the reason why I went to ISUFI, the Hague University Institute for Interdisciplinary Study, where I applied simply for an LLM, for a master. And this master was in international studies, international trade law, and international public law, administrative law. And my first choice was for the international trade law issue, which could be divided into private and public, international trade law, international economic law, but basically as characterized my later career, because at the end of that master's, I could apply for the PhD, and then I became a researcher assistant in the University of Lecce. And after having my PhD final thesis, which became a book on the international protection of geographical indication in intellectual property law, then I went to the Catholic University of Sacred Art in Milan and Piacenza to teach international trade law. You can see that there are many elements. I mean, I went to apply for international master, and I could say that I have a thesis in international law. It was about international investment law, precisely. It was about international contract of investment with states and private investors. And this was exactly the consequence of my international studies in Bilbao. First element. Then I could say, well, I know English, I know French, I know Spanish, and that was about aiming languages. And that was also the result of being there in Bilbao. And then when I went to Milan, I had no problem in leaving my city, and this was exiting my comfort zone, and this was being obviously prompt and ready, which is not which is not at all something which should be given for granted in a small city like Lecce, where life is very, very, very sweet and comfortable, and many people would never leave the city or would go abroad or to the north just to come back in 2, 3, 4, 5 years as soon as possible. I think that this mindset was exactly the result of the experiences in Bilbao, but also the concrete capacity that I developed through the experience in Bilbao, and then the interest in international careers, international law, European Union law. In Milan, while I was studying for my PhD, I also had a first, and when I was first contacts with a number of persons. We were working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I had also one first selection for a specialized position. And then after being a lawyer I mean, I work as a lawyer, as a business lawyer in Milan, while teaching at the Catholic University for 2 years. Then I had the chance to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to go back to Rome. And again, I changed in 3 years, 3 cities, Lecce, Milan, and then Rome. And I had the chance to have a first part of caring work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with a specialized role concerning economy and law. And then once I was there, I understand that diplomacy could have been very important for my life, because it could have given me the chance, which chance, to have a kind of life-lasting Erasmus, let's say. And I applied obviously for diplomacy with a very, very difficult selection, which obviously I could make because of the languages that the Spanish that I learned in Bilbao. And I can tell you that in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy, the Spanish language is also very, 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 I mean, it's rarer than other languages, and then it gives you some possibilities, some chances which other people do not have, and also that the curiosity that you develop when you have an Erasmus experience is very important, because it is the greatest part of any international career, and especially of a diplomatic career. In diplomacy, and in any international organization, you may want to work in your career with a technical position, with a political position. You will see that you can work with many issues, with many sectors, with many types of tasks or roles, and you can also switch from one role to the other, from a very technical to a very political, in the same day or in a few days, or also by the succession of appointments, and it is very important to be curious, to be prompt and ready to solve any problem, to have the capacity to react in a very short time, and to have a capacity of socialization, of networking, which can make the difference, really, to be ready in any moment, at any time, to have many good relation, connection, and contacts that can help you to solve problems. The diplomacy of friendship is the very first part, is a very founding block of the capacity of a diplomat, because in a few phone calls you can solve problems that you will never solve without having a clear knowledge of the issue or the persons that can help you. So, I mean, from a professional point of view, I think that the mobility experiences, Erasmus experience, different Erasmus experience, a good combination of Erasmus experience can be decisive and crucial to get to the point, and to have capacities that the firms and organizations, public and private, will valorize and will value very well. It is something which helped me in any selection. In any selection, I put it into evidence, and in some cases it gave me also that kind of chance that made me jump up the other people and come to the point. But especially, I think it's the spirit that the Erasmus gives you that counts, really. It's a kind of overcoming a kind of a thread, you know, a black line, which brings you to feel comfortable with yourself, and to be able to face with many problems, and even multitasking, and go straight to the point, understand how to manage your life. In my case, there was also a kind of fine tuning, you know, a kind of matching between the, let's say, the international experience and then the international career, the international interests that I develop. And this has been a long line of continuity, which has brought me from Lecce to Pisa, then from Pisa to Bilbao, then from Bilbao to Pisa, to the Isufi in Lecce, and then to Alicante, where I worked as well, one of my turning point of my career in Alicante, at the Office for the Harmonization of the Internal Market, an agency of the European Union, which today is the European Union Intellectual Property Office. There, I mean, the very start after studying, no, the very experience of training, but also work, was there, and obviously it couldn't been different. Think. I had my master in Lecce, in my city. I had also my legal practice there, and I was on the line. You know, have you seen Match Point, the movie of Woody Allen? There is a ball, it is on the net, and it can, you know, it can fall from on one side or the other. I was in my city. I was practicing law. I had a girlfriend there, but I wanted to be international and to make an international career. If I wouldn't have the chance to go abroad in that moment, probably I would have left any international career. But then I discovered that there was this scope, this grant, this stage, which was analogous to the stage for the European Union, but not in Brussels. It was on the seaside, so in Alicante, in the south of Spain. I mean, I was studying intellectual property, and I studied intellectual property in Bilbao. It was one of my 4 examinations that I made there during my 10 months Erasmus, and also it was in Spain, and so it was needed Spanish to go there. So 2 very important points of my CV at that moment, having an interest in intellectual property, which I studied in Spain, having an international law preparation, but especially knowing Spanish, the Spanish language, were there due to the Erasmus. So then that match point, going to Alicante and work in the legal department of the European Intellectual Property Office was paramount for me. After that, my PhD, I would have won my PhD basically because there I developed a research project on trademarks and geographical indications. And then from the results of the PhD, I was deemed to be sufficiently good and excellent to go to the University in Milan to teach at the Catholic University, International Trade Law. And intellectual property has always been a great part of my interest, a specialization among others that I privileged. And I can tell you that 3 years, 3 of my, I mean, of the best, probably one of the best experience of my professional experience of my life has been in 3 years that I was the intellectual property unit of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where I managed the World Intellectual Property Organization sector, and basically all negotiation in the General Assembly of the World Intellectual Property Organization, and the committees on copyright, and the committee on geographical indication, trademarks and designs, and also the working groups of the council here in Brussels. I used to come to Brussels, not to live in Brussels, I used to come in Brussels every week to work in the council, and then to negotiate for Italy the relevant regulations, directives, and eventually position of the EU coordinated position before the General Assembly, so WIPO. And basically you can see that there is a line, a direct line between the experience in Bilbao, the exam of where I took the exam of intellectual property, but also the Spanish, and then all the passages that I have later. This is something that you have to bear in mind. I mean, everything that you do can in the future come useful. And by no means also the networking capacity that I had there was very important in all this route. If I think to many passages that I had where I was able to put into contact people, even professors in my university, which they know themselves but didn't know. I mean, they know each other through myself, and then creating, you know, relationships, interlocutions, and interaction, which were then brought value added to their careers, to their university, but also to me, which that I was. I mean, that the point of contact was very important. So, I mean, I hope that this can be a kind of a message that is grasped from you, and it turns into something useful for your professional life.
Great, great. We actually also have a couple of questions, because I also know that quite some of our participants are interested in diplomacy and studies in this field. We actually have more questions now. Wow, thank you guys. So we would like to briefly answer to each of them. So Chiara is asking us, did you have to try the selection to become a diplomat more than once? So I think this is related to the Italian system and contest in diplomacy.
Yeah, I had to try the Italian the selection twice. The first time, I think I was even better than the second, which I passed. The first time, the first mine I made. I mean, I think I wrote a Spanish opinion, which was very. I mean, you know, in the diplomacy in Italy, you had a selection with the three. I mean, written tests with one of international law, one of international economics, one of international history of international relations, and then 2 languages, and without any vocabulary. I tried. I mean, there was one time, the first time, I didn't pass to the oral examination for like 0.1 or 0.2. I don't know. Very small percentage. And the second time I passed, and then I had my oral examination, and it was great. I think that the best thing to do, I mean, to pass this selection is to take it as it is. You have to study many notions. In Italy, at least, the examination, I mean, could be criticable because it is still very traditional and classic. I don't know in other countries. But I mean, you have to take it as it is, study a lot, and possibly. Well, I had a particular situation because I was already there working, but I also studied a lot. I mean, as a PhD researcher, I was a bit older than others, let's say, and I had also a great preparation in international law and in international economics, especially. So I had like to complete, I mean, with the history of international relations, my preparation, and I was obviously reading a lot and being very curious, reading any I mean, newspaper, magazine, or any other source or internet source that is related to having also my memberships and. For international relations. So what I think that you have to be very curious, read a lot, everything serves. Don't think to those people who say, no, you don't need to read newspapers. No, you need to read everything. Everything it serves the function. It's very important. But obviously, while I didn't have, I had masters and PhD, and I didn't have the need to pass through a preparation course. I would say that today it is very much more competitive than in the past, and it is quite important to have a kind of guide and to pass through the ISPI in Italy and in Milan. I mean the ISPI courses for the preparation to the diplomatic career of the COI, CIOI in Rome, or eventually in Naples. And at that time also ISUFI, my institute in Lecce, had a course for the preparation of diplomacy, so that I didn't really attend, but I had all the materials, and I was even a professor in that course. So I think that the thing to do is really to work, to study a lot of notions, to have a critical appraisal of those notions, possibly through experience. But if you are very young, probably you will not have the chance to work before passing or having the chance to participate in the tests. What is really important is to be up to your times, to read everything you pass through, and also be ready. I mean, this is if I would have passed the second time the competition, I would probably have changed and make other things, or have. The preparation for this important preparation for a diplomatic career is something that you can use in many sectors, and it is not. You shouldn't give it for granted the preparation that you have and the satisfaction that you can have. It is for sure coming from working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I can see today that international relations, I can see networking, very important. I said before, international relations today pass through many people. It is not, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs does not have the monopoly of international relations as it was 50 years ago. Once I was hearing the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that time was Gentiloni, saying, the Secretary General, still the Secretary General, Elisabetta Belloin, saying to us, to the colleagues, well, I went to the Minister Gentiloni to say that there was this event, this situation that passed in North Africa, but he already knew. He already knew. The networks through which international relations develop today are not only the public organizations, but also the private. We have a lot of multinationals. We have a lot of non-governmental organizations being present in many countries. And so I think that any international preparation should be developed, having clear that today the best thing to work is public-private partnership, as is in the mind of and in the DNA of the garagErasmus project, and then this preparation can be useful in different directions, and it has to be prepared. You start from a route, and then you see where you can place this preparation. It can be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it can be a multinational, it can be a non-governmental organization, it can be your own international firm, it can be many things.
Okay, great. We still have lots of questions and only 15 minutes left, so we hope to cover them all.
I'll try to be very straight to the point. Okay.
Thank you. And we have a second one related to networking. So Julia is asking us, how can you talk about, can you talk about how to effectively network without sounding too desperate? So supposing that you are at a meeting, you'd like to make some contacts, but you don't really know how to approach the key persons. How are we doing this?
Well, it depends a lot on the condition. I understand that the question is how can, in abstract, you concretely get to a person if you don't have direct connections.
Yes.
Well, there are many techniques, and it depends a lot on the type of situation, obviously. But one of the techniques that you can use is for sure. I think to one friend of mine, for example, that today is a great journalist in the wine sector. Pierluigi Gorgomi is one of the new Veronelli. Veronelli was a very great, fantastic, now he has died, journalist in the wine sector, but he was also a poet, let's say, of journalism, a writer. There are 4 or 5 persons that are up to that capacity, that great professionality, and one of these of these guys is one friend of mine, but I was friend of him before he became the new Veronelli or Pierluigi Gorgoni, the wine writer. He was studying medicine, and it was for examination to the end of his university, to the bachelor, and he decided that, I mean, he didn't, I mean, he would have liked to make international cooperation and in the medical sector, but he decided at a certain point of his life, after a great pain, that he would have not have been capable to do that, and he decided to change, and wine. I mean, wine was his passion. Wine, the culture around the wine words and gastronomy and etc. I used to study and live in Parma, and he was a great writer because he used to write about cinema and history since he was 14 years old for, you know, small magazines in the city, in his city of origin, and but he also wrote for many newspapers there in Parma, but he didn't know how to get into the world of wine writer, and then he decided to go to work in a how do you say, in a kind of pub, in a wine shop, which had some tables, and he was there as a let's say first as a waiter and then tasting wine, and he was good in tasting wine, but he would have liked to write for a newspaper. And after some years of experience, but I'm talking about 1 year and a half, 2 years, then he decided to write some pieces on the wines, because they used to close the shop and taste some wine. And he made some very good articles. He is a very great, I mean, he's very good in writing about the history of a product, the history of a land, and what you find into a bottle, you know, and not only about, you know, technical issues or chemical issues. He was also good in chemical, because in chemistry, because he was nearly a magician and a doctor, and but then he simply organized an event on wine, simply promoting his writings, and he invited 2 or 3 persons, and particularly one person who was starting with this Italian very important magazine you can find in the newspaper shops, which is Spirito Divino. Is a bit kind of probably the Italian, it's the Swan Group, probably the Italian magazine more important of the sector, and then he gave to this person who came. He invited this person. Organizing, obviously, this was a wine shop. It was not that important, but in any case, really specialized in a small city. He succeeded in inviting this person. This person was going to become the director of Spirito Divino. He gave the articles, and then he called him. And then he went there and he became the wine taster. So now today he moves, you know, the evaluation of the wine, the new wines, and so a lot of money, but he is still very I mean, hard and very authentic is in his work. So one technique can be, I mean, you can draw the lesson. I mean, one technique can be, if you are not able to get to a person through your 7 you know, we say that there are 6, 7 passages to any people in the world. And so the first, obviously, is to see, how can I get to that place? How can I get to that person? How can I arrive to this person through an accreditation to the person that I know? Obviously, as many people, as more people you know during your life in your different experience, Bilbao, Alicante, Brussels, and we are taught in our preparation courses to develop, obviously, network and relation in any place we go, in any city we go to work during our career. One day you cultivate these relations. One day you go to Geneva and you meet some people, but many years later you could meet that same people, diplomats, I mean, in many other situation, in many other postings, and they could have become as you important. So this is obviously very important. But obviously, if you don't have that network, or you don't succeed in using those 7 passages that could allow you to get there, you have to, I mean, find out something which can be interesting. I would say today, with my friend Marco Smarty, which is one of the founder of garagErasmus also, that today, I mean, the social networking system and the mailing system, I mean, has changed. There is a lot of disintermediation. Obviously, the point is in the massive number of mail and communication we receive to succeed in getting the right address, and also to attract, you know, I mean, to be attractive to the persons you want to target, you want to address. I mean, insistence is important, but also within a context of kindness, and you know how to insist, how to kindly insist, how to ironically insist, how to insist with interest that you know that person studied, that person, that target, you can get him interested in the, you know, you get it into the net. And but I think still that, I mean, if you have the chance, and if you are really into a sector that, I mean, it is close to the interest of the person, and you are into an experience that it is worth to bring on, then trying to involve the people through events or situations where you could have them involved and develop, you know, a relation is very important. And obviously,
Rocco,
yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. We have only 7 minutes left.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I remember. Sorry. It was a very difficult question.
Yeah, of course, and lots of questions. We will try to cover quite some of them. So let's make.
I can stay even 2 minutes more. It's not a problem. We can stay 5 minutes more if you want.
Okay, we'll try to make the marathon of the questions. So we'll try to cover them all, because they are really interesting, lots of them as far as I see. So let's have one more related to diplomacy again. Can you work as a diplomat in a country where you're not a citizen of? What other position related to diplomacy field one can work for as a foreigner?
Sorry. Go slow. Sorry, can you repeat the first? Can you work?
Can you work as a diplomat in a country where you're not citizen of? So you're in France, you are Spanish, but you want to work in that.
Well, it can happen with Europe. It can happen with Europe. Usually not, but it can happen with Europe, because you can become being the citizen of one of the 27 countries of Europe. You can become a diplomat in the European External Action Service. Go on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Great. On your opinion, how much a delay in graduating affect the career as a lawyer?
Sorry. How much?
How much a delay in graduating? So you're graduating later than
can affect the course of a lawyer. Well, I don't think I mean, life is particular. It can happen that you lose some chances, but I don't think a delay can become so crucial, can be so crucial if you use those years. I mean, the Italian university is very abstract and theoretical, and you don't have any clue when you go out, at least when I studied law, of how to write a response, how to write a deed, how to write a contract. You don't have experience in tribunals, and in some cases it's better than having. I mean, if those years have been used in order to have experiences, which can be also an Erasmus experience, or in frequenting and attending also some law firm, or making some stage, or eventually to write a thesis and learn how to write, and it takes time. Everything takes time. I don't think that that delay can affect your career later as a lawyer so much as obviously it would be the first impression. I remember that my master, my first professor of international law, Giuseppe Panico, was I mean, when I had to write my thesis on international investment law, I had my father saying, you have to go very, very, very soon. You already had your Erasmus, you are a bit late. I got the maximum, summa cum laude, and I had all the highest marks. But obviously my father is quite hard, and he was not happy that I had some delay. But my professor, who was a big professor, very, very big, very, very important professor, was saying, no, you take all the time you need. Now, obviously, if you go too much ahead and too much beyond the lines, let's say, that can affect your career. But if you take your time to write, to understand, if you don't miss any, for example, the 2 years for the legal practice in December in order to get then your selection as a lawyer in time, I don't think that this really affects. What really affects the career of a lawyer today is many other factors which make it very difficult. Unfair competition, a high number of people who is not able really to be a lawyer, but I mean gives problems to the real lawyers. We can see also the system of jurisdiction, which is undergoing these days very critical situation. I mean, an amount of resources from the Justice Ministry that is not up to the time. I mean, up to the needs of the judicial system. But to be the lawyer, you need a lot of will, a lot of practice, and then at a certain point there is something which starts when which triggers in a mechanism in your mind, and you understand how to do things. This is very important. The lawyer also get major ripe for the profession a bit later than other profession, because you need really many experiences, and it is a very great profession. And even if I am a diplomat, I use a lot the law in my profession. I use it as a negotiating card, a negotiating tool, but I still think that I would have been a great lawyer, much more than a diplomat.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a last question related to European affairs. So Carmen is telling us, I would like to pursue a career in European affairs, and I know there's a good thing to specialize, but I'm interested in more areas such as south of Europe, EU foreign affairs, in Latin America. From a professional point of view, it is badly perceived to have more areas of interest.
Well, it is not badly perceived. Well, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, let's start from the angle. This is very important. In this moment, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has got to a point where there is a lot of generalism. Let's say that the idea is that we have a big network of diplomatic representations, of diplomatic missions, which is difficult to cover. We also have, from many years, a kind of reduction of the, let's say, public selections by the concours. And so the number also of workers in the ministry, diplomats are the ruling group of professionals in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but then you don't have an army where all are chiefs. You need a lot of soldiers, and the middle level and the low level positions are not that in these moments are not well covered. There will be some selection in the next year. There are many interesting positions in the Ministry of Finance which are not for diplomats. And there will be probably many selections in the next years for many places, because many posts, because there's a big need. This need of covering a very big network then makes easier for the management, you know, for the human resources management to work with, you know, with generalism, and then also only at a certain point encouraging to try to develop a potential of the single person in relation with the objective of foreign policy and the needs that the network has. So I mean, for sure, capacity to switch from not to have a specialization or some specialization, but rather to be general, to be able to go in any place is an asset for the administration, and probably for all the administration, not only the Italian administration. But I mean, a person as Carmen who has many specialization is in between having one specialization and having many specializations, so that it can be used in many posts and in many situations. So this is sometimes it comes to be an advantage. And I would say, from the angle of a person who is not only a diplomat, but has been a professor, a researcher, and still teaches in the university or give lectures, that they're having many, I mean, that today what is really winning, it's really important, is to have it. I mean, I quoted to you, I mentioned to you the ISUFI, the High University Institute for Interdisciplinary Studies. So my point is, interdisciplinarity has a general capacity, general culture, and general capacity to deal with things, to deal with issues, to deal with what comes to your table. You have to work with, you have to move, you have to create something. It is, any profession is a art, really. And you need a general approach, an interdisciplinary approach, the capacity to go from a place to another, to a subject to another, and combine and create connection. But then also have 1, 2, 3 maximum specializations when you really go deep. This is what happens to me. I mean, I have a general legal and international relations capacity, but then I have a Euro-Mediterranean, for sure, specialization, a legal specialization in intellectual property, but also in international trade, especially international trade law, including the WTO and public and international contracts private. And then, let's say, also this particular passion for cross-cutting issues between international trade and human rights or environment, which is particularly a critical appraisal of international law, including investment law. So I think that the having this type of situation is a value. You have to find interlocutors that value it, and so make use of it and make use of you for their organization. I think in the past the ministry had specific diplomatic specialization, like geographic or trade specialization, but now they have been, let's say, let aside. The relevance of specialization within the career is left to your capacity to promote it, and to the to the cleverness of the management to understand that that kind of capacity can be used in a place or another. But still, I mean, what is paying a lot is being able and being capable to be multi-use, let's say, to be able to work in many sectors, having those soft skills, those capacity of socializing and working in team and expressing yourself in any situation you are called to work with. If I can give you a tip is, first, when you are so young, accept everything. And then once accepting everything, you have experience, try to select what you are really interested in. Experience cannot be substituted by any study, even if we need to study, because the theory is obviously a great guide to go ahead and faster in practice. Thank you, Carmen, for the question. Very interesting.
Okay, thank you, Rocco, for answering and for sharing your experience with us. Carmen, it's thanking you actually for your input. Now we run out of time, so I need to apologize for the couple of questions we didn't have time to cover. But I think you guys grasped the idea, the main idea that Rocco talked about today. So we hope this was useful for you. We will wait for you tomorrow for our last day, and we will be back with Giuliana Zoppardi at 5 p.m. Central European time, talking about leading again, and then with our Erasmus alumni talk. There is lots of appreciation coming up for you, Rocco. So they are
grazie a tutti. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
They are really happy. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and yeah, have a nice evening, have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Serena, and a great garagErasmus Academy until tomorrow, I think, right? Or till Saturday?
Tomorrow is the last day.
Okay, great. So hope you enjoyed. Ciao.
Yes, they did.
Bye.
Surely they did.
Ciao,
bye. Ciao.
Ciao.